Hello, everyone, and welcome to a look at the week ahead through Vedic astrology for the week beginning the 9th of May, 2016, all the way up to and through the 15th of May, 2016. Big news this week is Jupiter stationing at this very moment, getting ready to go back to direct motion, while we still have Mars, Mercury, and Saturn in retrograde motion. So I've been talking a lot the last couple of weeks, little bits and pieces about Jupiter and Venus, and talking about Jupiter and Venus and how they are the ministers of the royal court of planets. And this is very important to understand, especially because Jupiter and Venus have been playing very prominently into the astrology recently. Venus especially, because there have been a lot of planets that have been transiting either through Bharani Nakshatra or through Poorva Falguni Nakshatra, which is where we have Jupiter this week. So it's important to understand these two planets. Jupiter is the minister in terms of spiritual things to the royal court of planets, mainly to the king, king being the sun, right? He tells the king how to rule his kingdom, right? Basically, the moon is reflecting the light of the sun, so it's going to go over to the moon as well, too, so the king and the queen, right? But Jupiter's about the spiritual advice, the things that need to be done for the kingdom to be happy, so to speak, right? And the things that need to be done for us to be happy. And meaning, that's the number one thing that we need. When our life has meaning, we're happy with it, right? For the most part. When our life has meaning and we're going through difficult times, well, at least those difficult times become meaning as well, because then we take that meaning, hopefully we apply it to our lives, we do something about whatever is causing us the stress, and we grow from it, right? So it's important to have that meaning. When Jupiter's retrograde, we're going through a very internal process. We're looking for meaning inside of ourselves, looking for meaning within. Then when it shifts back to direct motion, the process that we have been through in the months previous when Jupiter was in retrograde motion, we then begin to take that energy and apply it externally. We begin to expand our lives accordingly. So Jupiter is the spiritual minister. Venus is the minister in terms of practical and mundane things within the kingdom. So we use Venus to evaluate situations. Evaluate situations, really take a look at things and make the right decisions. So when there's a good Venus, in our chart, then we tend to make wise decisions, wise choices for ourselves. We have a good sense of values in relation to material affairs, right? Now, Jupiter and Venus are planetary enemies, right? So on one level, they have a hard time working with each other because Jupiter wants to think more spiritually, right? And Venus wants to think more on the mundane level. But both of those planets are very necessary for the functioning of each other. So basically, there has been a process for the last few weeks of really having to look at some difficult truths. Part of that has been going on, especially within the last week, because of Mercury's retrograde. And Mercury has been retrograding through Kritika Nakshatra. And Kritika Nakshatra is ruled by the sun. Kritika Nakshatra has the power to purify, but it also has the power to burn. That burning and that purification really are one and the same. Sometimes the truth burns, right? But it purifies. It makes us more whole. So with Mercury retrograding through Kritika Nakshatra, there has been a real need to take a look at things, make some adjustments where adjustments have been necessary, for the next stage of the journey. And that's when we come back around to Jupiter right now and what this Jupiter stationing direct is all about. Let's talk about Poorva Falguni Nakshatra. Some of the things that symbolize Poorva Falguni Nakshatra are a cot. In addition to that, a platform. These are all things associated with Poorva Falguni Nakshatra. What are those about? Well, what does Poorva Falguni do? Poorva Falguni, the cot, let's talk about that. It's a resting stage on the soul's journey, where that soul can gather together information that it needs to use in Uttara Falguni, right? When Jupiter was first retrograding, it was in Uttara Falguni. Uttara means ladder of the Falgunis, right? Poorva Falguni means the former of the Falgunis. So really, they're one and the same nakshatra. But what Poorva Falguni Nakshatra does is it gives us a chance to kind of gather ourselves, right? So we've been in a process of gathering ourselves, really looking to find meaning with the situations that we've been dealing with, so that hopefully we can work more in harmony with ourselves and have more confidence. Because when Uttara Falguni is functioning better, that individual is confident for all the things that they need to do on their life's journey in the next stage, right? So Venus, as it has been dispositing Jupiter in Poorva Falguni Nakshatra, Venus has been in its own nakshatra recently. And that nakshatra is Bharani Nakshatra. Okay? Bharani Nakshatra is about transition, a shift from one phase of existence to another, a change that needs to take place, recognizing that everything good that comes into being is going to require a certain degree of labor pains. We have to go through the transformation, right? It's like the old saying, well, it's like if you had two carts next to each other being pulled by two different sets of horses, you couldn't really quite literally be on both of those carts, right? So you couldn't go in one direction while the other one's kind of trying to veer off in another direction. So you have to let go of something so that something else can come into being, right? As this process happens, because this week you've got Venus shifting from Bharani Nakshatra into Kritika Nakshatra. Because of the sun's position, the energy that it's able to give to Kritika Nakshatra can make for some difficult things to integrate. But as that's happening, some adjustments are being made along the way. Some changes are being made. But at the same time that those changes are being made, you're already beginning to make progress. And I think that's the point that I wanted to make, because now that you've got a direct Jupiter, Jupiter also is about expansion, expanding, right? Expanding spiritually, taking that meaning that I was talking about a moment ago, putting it to work, right? And really expanding with that. But while that's happening, you're making some adjustments. You're still looking at some things. But there's a difference to the tone of energy now. Yes, we still have Mars retrograde in Anuradha Nakshatra, which has been really forcing you to take a very deep look at things over the course of the last couple of weeks since it first started retrograding. You've got Saturn in Jyeshta Nakshatra. Now, there's a really special connection that's going on between Mercury, Saturn, and Mars right now. Mars is in Saturn's nakshatra, Anuradha Nakshatra. Saturn is in Mercury's nakshatra, which is Jyeshta Nakshatra. And Mercury is going to be retrograding, like I said, as it has already been, through Kritika Nakshatra, while it's, kind of making some adjustments, thinking about what it needs to do with the situation that it's being presented with, drawing upon the help and assistance of its friend Venus in that process, right? And then Mercury is going to shift back into Bharani Nakshatra. And when that happens, the sense of discrimination that Mercury is able to give upon reflection is able to further the movement, further the growth, help to support it even more deeply, right? Sure, there's some difficulty that's associated with whatever it is that you're going through. And it may not be something that you really want to take a look at, but retrograde periods are good for that. They're very necessary. We can't always just be going at things externally all the time. We need those occasional periods of reflection to really go deeply inside of ourselves and see where we want to take things. So back to Mercury, Saturn, and Mars, right? So basically, we've got aspects that are going on between all of those planets anyway, but they're influencing each other because of the nakshatra associations. So Mercury is taking that energy that, it's integrating through thinking and reflecting upon the situation. I wanted to say evaluating, but I was really making a key point of Venus being about evaluating, because Venus gives us that material wisdom. Mercury gives that sense of discrimination on how to work with that wisdom. That's why those two planets are planetary friends. But back to Mercury, Saturn, and Mars. So Mercury is going to take that energy and it's going to apply it to Saturn in Jyeshta Nakshatra. That slow-moving Saturn that. And what is Saturn in the royal court of planets? Well, it's the servant. So it's serving the situation. And it's really kind of taking things slow and steady, really looking at the potential within that particular situation, seeing the oversight on all of it. It's transferring that energy over to Mars, which is in Anuradha Nakshatra, which is about having that right relationship with whatever you're dealing with. Sure, it may be a right relationship to a relationship. It might be a right relationship to your work. It might be the right relationship that you're having with a box of cookies that you're thinking about down in the kitchen right this very moment, and going downstairs and opening up and deciding, well, do I really want to go eat that whole box of cookies? Hell yeah, you do. But is it really wise to do so, right? Probably not. Okay? So it's about what you need to do, right? Are you going to go downstairs and open up that box of cookies, right? Or are you going to work better for your own health and either go down to the shop and get some healthier cookies for you to eat, or are you going to decide with Jupiter's expansion, you know what, maybe I need to stop eating quite so many cookies, right? And when it boils down to it, people, that's how the cookie crumbles, by you eating it. But it also crumbles by you making a decision that you're not going to continue along the same path. It's digressing for the sake of humor, but really on one level, you're dealing with some pretty serious stuff, and it's hard to deal with, but by the same token, you now have the opportunity for some movement to come into the equation and to really help you with your own particular situation, because Jupiter is beginning to wake up. It's beginning to not go so much into the internal process. You've got the meaning. You understand the meaning. Now it's about taking that wisdom, doing something with it. Jupiter may on one level not be quite so happy because of his position in the sky. Equal to that, he is in Venus's nakshatra, and Venus is not one of his buddies, so to speak. But these planets, they all work together anyway. And so it's having to look at the real practical considerations for your life and what you need to do about that so you can grow spiritually. Practical, spiritual. Spiritual practice, right? Needing to do spiritual practice. I always like the saying, it's important to walk the mystical path, but with practical feet. It's a very double meaning statement, right? Which is, sure, you have all these spiritual considerations, but you also have to live in this practical material world. But it's equally saying, in your daily practical life, walk the mystical path. It's a balance. That's what Jupiter and Venus are all about, and you need to have the balance between those two planets right now. Venus is giving you the information that you need. You're ready to make that decision. Perhaps you've even made it already. Now it's just about implicating those choices. Sure, it's not all going to come into being probably as quickly as you might like for it to, because we've still got a retrograde Mars, and we've still got a retrograde Mercury, and we've still got a retrograde Saturn, right? So there's still a little more of the process left, but you're beginning to get it. If you could use a little bit of extra help, just to remind you, I do have a vast range of astrological services that are available if you click on the link that is at the very bottom of this particular video. That's going to do it for a look ahead at the week through Vedic astrology for the week beginning the 9th of May, 2016. Until next time, my friends, please do take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.